Welcome to Poland Daily History with me, Nicholas Richardson. In the previous episodes, we started to discuss the similarities and differences between Polish and British history when it comes to how the institution of the National Armed Forces has shaped the development of our states. In this episode, we will start by discussing British and Polish experiences in Afghanistan and Iraq before moving to discussion of the Eastern influence on Polish military culture.
Now thinking about all the money that was spent in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Can you imagine the amount of kit which the Americans left behind in Afghanistan?
Yeah.
If a fraction of that had been made available to Ukraine. It's mind-boggling that the Americans have so much, that they can leave so much behind.
No, it's definitely sad how much was wasted there for, well, almost 20 years. It certainly is something that both the Russians and the Chinese are very thankful for, that the West, mostly America, but the wider West as well, got slightly bogged down in those missions. But returning to geography and how we learn from each other, in the case of the Polish army, naturally, it is also interesting that, sure, there were some influences from Western Europe, but a lot of it came from either the South or the East, meaning either the Golden Horde, the Crimean Tatars, or from the South, just from the Ottoman Empire in general. So when we look at Polish military culture and traditions, we see a lot of Eastern influences. For example, the Poles were very quick with adopting the composite bow after having been exposed to the Mongol invading forces in the 1240s. The Poles also adapted the saber much earlier than Western Europe, and then partly through Poland, but also Hungary, the saber would make its way further west to Germany and then finally to England as well. But the Poles adapted it very quickly. Initially, the popular saber was either the Hungarian-Polish saber or the Armenian saber. With some time, then there was a special saber made for the hussar, the cavalry, the famous winged hussars, that was slightly different, not as curved as the other sabers. But these were traditions that came from the East. The same can be said in general about if we make a comparison with the UK, then what the Navy is to Great Britain, the horse was to the Polish army.
Yes.
While the infantry might have played a more important role in Western Europe, just the vast territories that weren't that populated in this part of Europe meant that mobility was extremely important. And when the opponent on the other side was either some Mongol horde, some Crimean Tatars, these were very lightly armored, highly mobile troops that came from often nomadic tribes that were living on the horseback. And if you were supposed to fight against them, you had to adapt some of their strategies. So the Poles had to learn to ride a horse the same way that the Tatars or the Mongols or the Ottomans did. The same can be seen in Hungary as well, even though the Hungarians themselves are originally from one of these nomadic steppe peoples as well. So it's definitely a component of this part of Europe that isn't that vastly well known in Western Europe. Back in the day, maybe in the 17th century, the nobility in France knew that if they will run into some Polish noblemen visiting them, then they can expect a show that will be not that remotely different from the ones they could expect from some guest from Baghdad or Istanbul or somewhere far east. The Poles, they wore the same kind of clothes as their Eastern neighbors.
True, yes.
There was this entire ideology, so-called Sarmatism, in which they believed that the Polish elite, the nobility, had initially been of a different Iranian ethnicity than the local Slavic. So they definitely kept their eyes very far to the east, and in Great Britain, as we mentioned earlier, it was more of a focus on what is happening on the continent just across the channel.
Exactly. Adam, as usual, the clock has defeated us, but we will pick it up next time, so thank you for that. There we are. I've had to interrupt Adam almost in mid-sentence, but don't worry, if you join us next time on Poland Daily History, as we hope you will, we'll pick up the story. In the meantime, thank you for watching and see you next time on Poland Daily History.